I had just gotten back to Lake Arlington on leave from Fort Adams. My uniform was still in the dry cleaning bag, and I was looking forward to a quiet weekend at the house my parents had left us. Instead, I walked into a living room staged like a courtroom. My sister, Samantha Doyle, was waiting at the dining table with a stack of papers spread out like evidence. She didn't even say hello. "Sign this or lose everything," she snapped, shoving the papers across the table. Her voice echoed off the high ceilings our dad had always been proud of. I looked at her. She was dressed up like she was meeting a bank officer, navy blazer, new haircut, an expensive-looking watch she definitely hadn't bought herself. She had always been dramatic, but this was next level. "What am I supposedly signing?" I asked. "Transfer of the house," she said without a hint of shame. "It's time to make this official. You're never here. You don't need it. I've been maintaining it for years." I glanced at the papers. Quitclaim deed was typed at the top. Below that were lines for my signature. The date was blank. No lawyer's letterhead. No notary stamp. Just a form downloaded from some legal website. "You've been maintaining it?" I said, keeping my tone flat. "With whose money?" She flinched but kept her chin high. "We're family. It all evens out. You were overseas. I kept the house from falling apart. And when I thought about the automatic payments from my military account, the contractors I'd hired while stationed abroad, the new roof I'd paid for last year, even the landscaping service came out of my checking account." Samantha's version of maintaining had been unlocking the door for repairmen. She pushed a pen toward me. "You don't have to make this difficult. Just sign, then you can go back to your base and I'll handle everything." I pulled out a chair and sat down slowly. Years of military policing had taught me that nothing good comes from rushing a tense moment. "Why now?" I asked. Her eyes darted away for a split second. "Taxes, paperwork. It's just easier if it's in my name. You're too busy to deal with this." I noticed she'd stacked our parents' framed photo on the sideboard, face turned to the wall. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "This house is in a trust, Sam." "You know that the trust can be changed," she said quickly. "We agreed I'd take care of it. We didn't agree on that," I said. Her phone buzzed on the table. A text preview popped up. "Patriot Legal Group, call us when she signs." She turned the phone over. Too late for me not to see it. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the lawn I paid for looked freshly mowed. A neighbor waved. I waved back, behind me. Samantha tapped her manicured nails on the table. "Look, Elena, you're military. You move around, I'm the stable one." "This is practical," she said. "Sign and it's done." I turned back. "Practical for who?" She smirked. "For both of us. You don't have to worry about it anymore." Her confidence would have been impressive if it wasn't built on a lie. I picked up the papers, flipping through. There were blank lines where witness names should be. She'd highlighted the signature line with a yellow marker. "Where's the notary?" I asked. "I'll handle that later," she said, waving her hand. "That's not how deeds work," I replied, keeping my tone even. She crossed her arms. "Elena, stop acting like you know everything. You're a cop on base, not a lawyer." I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled my phone from my pocket, set it face down on the table, and hit record with my thumb. Years of interviewing suspects had taught me to gather evidence first, argue later. "I'm not signing something without reading it," I said. "You already read it," she snapped. "It's straightforward. Sign or get out." There it was. The real ultimatum. I sat back down looking at her for a long moment. "If I sign this, you'll stop calling me about the house completely. It'll be mine to handle, and you'll pay all the taxes and repairs from now on." "Yes." "In writing." "Yes," she said again too fast. I picked up the pen she'd shoved toward me. It was a cheap ballpoint from some trade show. She leaned forward, anticipation in her eyes. I started signing page by page, carefully forming each letter. My face neutral. Her posture relaxed with each stroke of my pen. She thought she'd won. When I finished, I set the pen down. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my keys, and placed them on top of the papers. The keys clinked against the table louder than I expected. "There," I said. "You got what you wanted." Her mouth curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Smart choice. I'll take care of everything." And I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. Good luck with that, I said without turning around. Behind me, she called. Don't be bitter, Elena. You'll thank me later. I stepped outside into the warm air, my phone still recording in my pocket. My car was parked at the curb. I unlocked it, slid behind the wheel, and drove away from the house I'd paid for, leaving my sister standing in the doorway holding papers she didn't understand. I didn't look back. There was nothing in that moment that needed another glance. What the family drama behind the trust in our parents' legacy I needed was time, and time was exactly what she'd just given me without realizing it. As I merged onto the highway toward downtown, my phone buzzed with a notification from my bank. Another transfer I hadn't authorized, and another one from a law firm I didn't recognize. I turned the volume up on the car stereo, not because I cared about the song, but because I needed to think. Samantha had just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She thought she'd taken the house. What she'd actually done was open the door for me to prove everything. I kept driving, my mind already shifting into investigative mode. Years of training in military law enforcement had taught me how to build a case from scraps. This time, the case was my own and the subject was my sister. The exit for downtown came up fast. I signaled, changed lanes, and took it without hesitation. There was a hotel near my attorney's office where I could set up for the night. I had a feeling I was going to need a quiet place and a reliable Wi-Fi connection. When I parked, I checked my phone. The recording was still running. 30 minutes of audio. Every word she'd said, every threat, every promise. I saved the file and backed it up to the cloud. Upstairs, the hotel lobby smelled like fresh paint. I checked in under my own name, paid with my personal card, and carried my overnight bag up to the room. The first thing I did after closing the door was open my laptop. Emails from the bank, new transactions, messages from people I didn't know, and one from a name I did know, Marcus Feldman. The subject line read, "Call me when you can." I stared at the screen for a second, then hit dial. "Marcus," I said when he answered. "I think my sister just handed me exactly what I need." Axon. He didn't even ask what I meant. "Come in first thing tomorrow," he said. "Bring everything." I hung up, dropped the phone on the desk, and looked out the window at the city lights. My sister thought she had the upper hand. She had no idea how much I'd learned about leverage, and that was only the beginning. The hotel room curtain let in a thin strip of daylight, and I decided I'd had enough of sitting still. I slipped on my jacket, walked downstairs, and headed for the park across the street. My boots hit the sidewalk with the same steady rhythm I'd used on patrols overseas. Movement always helped me think. The park was quiet except for a few joggers. I sat on a bench, pulled out my notebook, and started listing everything that had brought us here. It wasn't just about a house. It was about years of choices, some mine, some hers, some our parents'. My parents had been planners. They built their small construction business from nothing, worked side jobs, and still managed to save enough to buy the Lake Arlington property when it was just an old house with a decent yard. They remodeled it piece by piece while raising us. They weren't flashy, but they were thorough. My dad loved contracts. My mom loved organization. By the time I was finishing my first deployment, they had already set up the trust with a local attorney. They didn't do it to play favorites. They did it because they'd watched neighbors lose property to bad marriages and messy estates. The trust named me as primary trustee, not because they loved me more, but because they thought a military cop would be harder to manipulate. Samantha had been part of the discussion. She'd nodded along and even helped pick the attorney. I remembered sitting at that kitchen table 5 years ago, still in uniform, while Dad explained it. "This way, nobody can mess with the house," he'd said. "It stays in the family." Samantha had smiled sweetly and said, "Of course, that's smart." After they died, things changed. I was deployed again. Samantha handled day-to-day things, utility bills, coordinating cleaners, keeping the place looking nice. I wired money into the household account every month to cover costs the same way I covered Dad's medical bills before he passed. It was practical. Or so I thought. Now reading the bank alerts and remembering that Patriot Legal Group text on her phone, I could see the pattern. She hadn't just been waiting. She'd been building a case in her own mind that the house was already hers. I flipped to a clean page and started writing down dates. First roof replacement, my payments, new appliances, my card, property taxes, always from my account. I made notes of every time Samantha had asked for temporary money for household needs, that a kid kicked a soccer ball nearby. It rolled to my feet. I passed it back without looking up. The kid said thanks and ran off. Back on the bench, I thought about the power of attorney I'd signed before deployment. I'd done it quickly, trusting my sister. It had been limited to paying bills. I knew the expiration date because I'd read it carefully at the time. That date was long past. She had no legal authority to sign anything big. I also thought about the pattern of our calls. She had started hinting months ago that she should just take over the house. I brushed it off, thinking she was venting. My mistake. I tore the page out of the notebook, folded it, and put it in my jacket pocket. The cool paper against my hand reminded me of every case file I'd ever built. This wasn't just a family disagreement anymore. This was evidence. A gust of wind blew through the park and I zipped up my jacket. My phone buzzed. It was an email from an old friend at the JAG office. I'd sent a message the night before asking for a quick read on trust law. Military officer Elena spots red flags in the mansion. Transfer, her reply was short and to the point. If the POA expired, she has zero authority. Document everything. Call me if you need a template for an affidavit. I typed a quick thank you and started walking back to the hotel. Each step felt like I was moving from a haze into clarity. Back in the room, I spread my parents' old trust documents on the desk. I'd brought them from my safe deposit box months ago for routine review. Now they looked like a shield I'd forgotten I had. The language was clear. The property remained in the trust, not in either of our personal names. Only I*D could authorize transfers. Samantha's signature without my consent meant nothing. I took a photo of each page and uploaded it to a secure folder Marcus had given me access to. He was good at building airtight cases. When I'd first hired him to help with a base housing dispute years ago, he'd impressed me with how fast he found holes in the other side's paperwork. He wasn't flashy. He didn't advertise on bus benches. He just worked. I called him again. Marcus, I'm sending you the trust documents, the expired POA, and screenshots of last night's texts. Got them, he said. Keep everything coming. Don't delete a single message. And don't confront her yet. Let her think she's ahead. I'm Maddie. She's already throwing a victory party, I said. Good, he replied. Ego is evidence. I hung up and sat back. The hotel's generic artwork stared down at me. I almost laughed. People pay for motivational posters. All I needed was my sister's arrogance. My phone buzzed again. Another alert from the joint account. This time, it was a payment to a staging company. She was spending my money to decorate the house for a new chapter. I opened my laptop and logged into the account. Each transaction lined up with her social media posts. Flowers, a designer rug, a thank you Patriot legal group dinner at an expensive restaurant. I started a spreadsheet entering amounts, dates, and notes. This was what I did for a living. Build timelines, cross-reference facts, match statements with actions. Only this time the suspect was my own sister. As the afternoon sun hit the window, I felt a calm focus settle in. The emotional noise was fading. All that remained was process. I picked up the phone and called the JAG office. Can you send me that affidavit template? I asked. On its way, my friend said. And Elena, you're doing everything right. Just keep your cool. I'm fine, I said. And I meant it. When the email arrived, I opened the attachment and read through the language. Straightforward, no fluff. Sworn statement about the trust, the POA expiration, my financial contributions. Exactly what I needed. I printed it in the hotel business center, filled out the first section, and signed. I didn't rush the rest. There would be time tomorrow at Marcus's office to finish with a notary. Back upstairs, I made coffee and sat at the desk again. The smell of cheap hotel brew wasn't homey, but it was familiar. It reminded me of late nights writing reports after long shifts. I opened Samantha's social media. She'd posted a photo of herself on the porch of the mansion, holding a glass of wine I'd bought her last Christmas. The caption read, "Some people talk about taking control. Some people actually do it." Comments were full of her friends cheering. I saved the post. Then I saved the stories, Every video, every bragging caption, she thought she was building her image. She was actually building my case. Another alert. She'd booked a photographer for branding photos at the house. Paid with a joint account. I noted the date and time. I closed the laptop and leaned back. The room was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. It wasn't peace exactly, but it was clarity. My parents had built that house to last. They'd built their paperwork to last too. Samantha's plan rested on the hope that I'd either give up or blow up. She didn't know me as well as she thought. I poured another cup of coffee, opened a new document, and started drafting a timeline. Each entry a nail in the coffin of her claim. This wasn't about revenge for me. It was about protecting what my parents had built and what I had paid for. If the process embarrassed her, that was her problem. The phone buzzed one more time. This time it was Marcus. Got your files? This is stronger than I expected. Be here at 8 a.m. We'll set the trap legally. I typed back one word. Understood. Then I saved my work, locked the laptop, and looked at the stack of papers on the desk. Everything I needed was right there, and it was only getting clearer with each step. The morning alarm went off at 6, but I was already awake, sitting at Thesmal Hotel desk with a cup of bad coffee and my laptop open. I'd lined up my documents in neat digital folders. My boots were polished, my hair tied back, and my phone was set to record automatically whenever I took a call. It was the kind of routine I'd used on deployments. No wasted movement, no lost evidence. Before heading to Marcus's office, I stopped by a branch of Riverstone Bank. The clerk recognized me from previous visits. "Morning, Captain Brooks," she said. I handed her my ID and asked for a print out of every transaction on the household account for gathering proof, like a true military investigator in this family revenge story the last 6 months. She hesitated at first, then brought me a thick stack of papers. I thanked her, slid them into a folder, and walked out. In the parking lot, I flipped through the pages. There were charges from a real estate appraiser, a home staging company, and Patriot Legal Group. 3 separate retainer payments spaced a few weeks apart. My name wasn't on any of the invoices. Samantha had been using my money to build a case against me. Back in my car, I opened the bank app on my phone. The household account showed abalance lower than I'd expected. Another charge had just hit, a consultation fee for estate restructuring. I screenshotted everything. At Marcus's office, his assistant handed me a fresh legal pad and pointed me toward the conference room. Marcus came in wearing the same gray suit he'd worn when he helped me with a base housing dispute 2 years earlier. He dropped into the chair across from me and started sorting the documents I'd emailed overnight. "You weren't kidding," he said. "This is sloppy but dangerous. She's trying to use expired authority to shift property out of a trust." "That's fraud on paper." "I know," I said. "I just need to make sure we do this by the book." He nodded. "We will, but first tell me everything in order." I walked him through the past week. The ultimatum at the house, the fake deed, the text from Patriot Legal Group. He listened without interrupting, scribbling notes. When I finished, he flipped back to the first page of the trust documents and tapped his pen. "This is airtight," he said. "Your parents set this up correctly. As long as you haven't commingled funds for the mortgage, the property stays separate. Have you?" "No. Mortgage payments, taxes, repairs, all from my business or personal accounts. Household expenses from the joint account, but nothing tied to the deed." "Good," he said. "That keeps the firewall intact." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Fiona, can you check whether Patriot Legal Group filed any preliminary notices on the Lake Arlington property?" He listened, jotted something, and hung up. "Nothing filed yet," he said to me. "She's still in the planning stage." I took out the expired power of attorney. Marcus examined it and whistled softly. Expired last year. She had no authority to sign anything major after that date. This alone blows her claim apart. I passed him the bank statements. He flipped through them quickly. "She's been paying appraisers and lawyers with your money. That's misappropriation. Can we prove it?" I asked. "We already can," he said. "Each payment is tied to your account number. Each invoice shows her name, not yours. This is exactly the kind of evidence judges like because it's simple." I sat back. The calm I'd felt the day before returned. Years of writing reports had taught me to value clean evidence over drama. Marcus leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do. You're not going to confront her. You're going to document every transaction, every message, every post. We'll prepare an injunction to freeze any attempted transfer. When she tries to file something, the court will already have your affidavit. Got it? I said. He scribbled on his legal pad. Also, start logging your own contributions to the property. Dates, amounts, contractors. Treat it like an investigation. Think like a military cop. That's the easy part, I said. We spent another hour building a timeline. By the time we finished, Marcus had 3 folders: trust documents, financial evidence, and social media. He slid them into his briefcase. I'll draft the motion tonight, he said. Meanwhile, keep collecting. As I left his office, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a JAG friend. Sent you that case law we talked about. Check your email. I opened the attachment while waiting for the elevator. It summarized a recent ruling where a sibling tried to use expired authority to take property from a trust. The court had not only reversed the transfer, but also awarded damages. I saved it to my folder. Outside, the sky was bright and clear. I walked to a nearby cafe, ordered black coffee, and sat by the window. My phone buzzed again, this time a notification from Samantha's Instagram. She'd posted a story of herself walking through the house with a real estate agent. The caption read, "Big plans coming soon." I muted the sound, recorded the screen, and saved the clip. Back at the hotel, I opened my laptop and started another spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, transaction or post. Column C, evidence saved. It looked like the case files I'd built as a military police investigator, except the suspect was family. While I typed, I remembered the last real conversation I'd had with Samantha before our parents' funeral. She'd said she envied me for having a plan while she felt stuck. I'd told her she could still make something of herself. She'd rolled her eyes. That was the moment I realized we lived in 2 different worlds. My phone rang. Marcus again. One more thing, he said. Don't stay at the hotel under your joint account. Pay everything from your own card. I already am, I said. Good. And Elena, keep your sense of humor. Judges like credible plaintiffs, not angry ones. I laughed once. I've been dealing with rowdy soldiers for years. I can handle one the fake surrender at the mansion dinner table, sister. We hung up. I opened Samantha's Facebook page. She'd posted a photo of a moving truck in the driveway with the caption, "Fresh start." I saved that too. I set my phone to record automatically whenever her name appeared on caller ID. Missouri was a one-party consent state. Marcus had confirmed it. Everything above board. The hotel desk was now covered with papers, each labeled and clipped. Bank statements, trust documents, screenshots of social media. It looked like an evidence board without the push pins. I took a break, went for a quick run along the river trail, and came back with a clearer head. When I returned, another notification waited on my phone. Patriot Legal Group had emailed Samantha a draft management agreement for the mansion. She'd accidentally forwarded it to the household email, which I still had access to. I opened it and read every line. It claimed she was the sole beneficial owner of the property, an outright false statement. I printed the email in the hotel business center and added it to the file. The stack was getting thicker. That evening, I called my JAG friend again. Got your email? I said, it's helpful. Good, she replied. And Elena, remember, you don't need to outsmart her. Just outdocument her. Understood, I said. I hung up and sat back at the desk. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. My phone lay face down, recording as always. On the screen, the spreadsheet now filled several pages. Dates, transactions, posts, invoices, a complete picture of what Samantha had been doing. Each entry was another brick in a wall she wouldn't be able to climb. I poured another cup of coffee and stared at the trust documents one more time. The language hadn't changed since my parents signed it. Neither had my duty to protect it. Samantha thought she was taking control. She didn't realize she'd already lost it. I closed the laptop, locked the files, and leaned back. The evidence was building faster than she could stage her victory, and I was just getting started. I left the hotel just after dawn, the folder of documents tucked under my arm, and headed straight for the small cafe across from the courthouse. It was one of those places where the tables were always sticky, but the Wi-Fi never failed. I ordered black coffee, sat by the window, and opened my laptop. The first thing I did was log into the Riverstone bank account again. Overnight, Samantha had authorized another withdrawal, $2,000, to a company called Arlington Staging and Design. She was literally decorating a crime scene with my money. I saved the PDF statement, circled the charge on a printed copy, and slipped it into a new binder labeled Financial Misuse. I'd bought the binder at an office supply store on my way in. Each section had tabs: bunk, social media, witnesses, old habits, Heart. Scrolling through my phone, I opened Samantha's Instagram. She had posted 3 new photos: a shiny dining table set with rented plates, floral arrangements I recognized from a local shop, and a caption that read, "Fresh start feels amazing." In the background of one photo, I spotted our mother's silver serving tray. That wasn't hers to flaunt. I downloaded the image, printed it, and slid it under the tab marked Stolen Property. A man 2 tables over gave me a curious glance as my printer hummed. I didn't care. Evidence first, impressions later. At 10:00, I drove to Marcus's office. He was already waiting. Legal pet open, Tilos. He motioned for me to sit. Let's see what we've got today. I laid out the binder. Bank statements, screenshots, social posts, invoices. He flipped through them, nodding as he read. This is textbook, he said. She's leaving a trail a mile wide. If she were a client, I'd tell her to shut down every account and stop posting. But since she's on the other side, he smirked. Ego is evidence, I reminded him. He chuckled. Exactly. We went through each document line by line. Marcus scribbled notes about state trust law, conversion of assets, and misuse of joint funds. Underlined the photo of the silver tray 3 times. That's tangible property, he said. If she moved it without your consent, it's theft, plain and simple. I pulled out my phone and opened the Ring app. A neighbor had given me access to their doorbell camera months earlier when break-ins were happening in the area. I scrolled to the timeline and found 2 clips. Samantha hauling boxes out of the house at midnight and a delivery truck arriving with furniture 2 days later. I copied both files to a thumb drive. Marcus nearly grinned. Video evidence. Beautiful. Judges love video. He handed the thumb drive back to him. Back this up in 3 places. Cloud external drive. Email it to me. Don't lose it. Already done, I said. As we worked, my phone buzzed with another notification. Samantha had gone live on Facebook. Marcus waved for me to put it on speaker. Her voice filled the room, finally taking control of what's mine. Can't wait to show everyone the new place. Behind her voice, I heard laughter, clinking glasses, music. She Sisters live stream turns family drama into evidence, was throwing a party in the house she thought she'd won. Marcus raised his eyebrows. She's narrating her own downfall. I hit record and saved the live video. She panned the camera across the dining room, showing off the rented furniture and calling it my dream home. She even joked about how I was too busy playing soldier to care. Marcus shook his head. Every word she says is usable. She's admitting possession. She's claiming ownership. She's mocking your military service. A judge won't like that. I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my voice calm. I've dealt with worse. We watched until the stream ended. Marcus leaned back in his chair. This is more than enough to build the case, but let's not stop here. We need corroboration. Witnesses, I asked. Exactly. Neighbors, contractors, anyone who saw her moving things out or bragging about taking over. I nodded. I'll talk to the landscaper. He's been on payroll for years. Marcus scribbled the name. Good. And document every call. Use that one-party consent law. No shortcuts. By mid-afternoon, my binder was twice as thick. I left Marcus's office and drove to the neighborhood. The landscaper, a man named Victor, was trimming hedges near the front gate. I pulled up and waved. Captain Brooks, he said, shutting off his trimmer. Victor, can he ask you something? He wiped his brow. Sure. Have you seen my sister moving things out of the house recently? He nodded. Yeah, a couple nights ago. Big boxes, furniture. I thought you were redecorating. Did she say anything to you? He scratched his chin, said it was all hers now, sounded proud. I recorded the conversation with my phone in my pocket. Thanks, Victor. That helps. No problem, he said. I always liked your folks. Hate to see trouble. I walked back to my car, file growing heavier in my mind, even if it was just digital. Each statement, each video, each receipt, it was all stacking up into something solid. That evening, back at the hotel, I opened my laptop and organized the files again. I created a master folder, Samantha case, subfolders for bank, social, witness, video. Everything labeled with dates and times, military precision applied to family chaos. Another notification popped up. Samantha had posted a story of herself holding a champagne glass in the living room. The caption, signed and sealed. It shook my head. Signed and sealed by who? By herself, apparently. I saved Thestory and added it to the folder. The more evidence I gathered, the clearer it became that she wasn't just reckless, she was convinced she was untouchable. And that conviction was exactly what was going to undo her. I brewed another pot of hotel coffee, sat back in the chair, and clicked through the folders one last time. Each piece lined up like puzzle pieces, snapping into place. The trust documents, the expired POA, the bank withdrawals, the stolen property, the social media confessions, the neighbor's testimony, the video footage. It wasn't about how loud she shouted or how confidently she posed online. It was about the record, and the record was no longer hers to control. When I shut the laptop and turned off the desk lamp, the room went quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. My bag was packed, the binder was ready, and the evidence was safe in 3 different locations. E lay down on the stiff hotel bed, not tired, but steady. Everything was in motion now, and I had exactly what I needed to keep moving forward. The evening sky was already dark when I parked down the street from the mansion. The driveway lights glowed like runway markers leading up to a house that now looked staged for a magazine shoot. Samantha had texted me earlier, telling me to come for one last chance to work this out. Her tone had been smug even in print. I slipped my phone into my jacket pocket, made sure the recording app was ready, and walked up the path. Inside, the house smelled of fresh flowers and catering food. The living room was rearranged with rented furniture, and Door parents' family portraits had been stacked in a corner, replaced by generic art prints. The silver tray I'd spotted on Instagram sat on the sideboard holding glasses of champagne. Samantha appeared from the kitchen wearing a dress I hadn't seen before, her hair professionally styled. "Look who finally decided to show up," she said, her voice coated with fake warmth. I took a seat at the dining table without answering. The table was set with matching plates, candles, and an expensive-looking centerpiece. This was no family dinner. It was a performance. She poured herself wine and leaned on the chair opposite me. "I'm glad you're here. We can end this nicely." "And what exactly?" I asked. The back and forth, the tension, all of it. "I've already got the papers drawn up. You sign them tonight and it's done. No more drama." She slid a fresh stack of papers across the table. These ones looked more official. Patriot Legal Group letterhead. Signature blocks, a blank notary stamp at the bottom. "You've been busy," I said, flipping through them slowly. "I have to be," she replied. "You're not around. Someone has to take responsibility." Her phone buzzed and she glanced at it with a small smile. I building the legal case to expose the truth caught a glimpse of a text preview. Everything's set for tomorrow's announcement. She locked the screen quickly and sipped her wine. "I don't like being pressured," I said. She put the glass down and fixed me with a look she used to give when we were kids, and she thought she'd won an argument. "Elena, don't make this harder than it has to be. Sign tonight and you'll be free of it all. You can focus on your job. You know you don't really want this house." I stared at her for a moment. "If I sign, this is completely over." "Completely?" she said, smiling. "I'll handle everything from here, and you'll cover the taxes, the repairs, all expenses. Yes. End of time in writing." "Yes," she said again. I set the papers down and reached into my bag for a pen. Her eyes lit up. "Good," she said. "This is the smart move." I opened the pen and began signing each page with deliberate care. My phone, hidden under the edge of the tablecloth, recorded every word. She poured more wine, her voice relaxing as she chatted about renovations, rental income, new opportunities. Halfway through, she pulled out her own phone and started taking selfies with the papers, holding them up like atrophy. Just a little documentation for my lawyer, she said with a laugh. I kept my face neutral. Years of interrogations had taught me how to hide my reactions. Page after page, I signed where she'd highlighted, never rushing, never hesitating. When I finished, I capped the pen and pushed the papers back to her. There, I said, all signed. She scooped them up with a grin. I knew you'd see reason. This is going to make everything so much easier. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the house keys and placed them on the table just like before. They made a soft clink on the polished wood. You really are doing the right thing, she said, her voice sliding into faux sympathy. You'll thank me someday. I stood up, pushing the chair back quietly. Enjoy your dinner, I said. She raised her glass tone of beginnings. I turned and walked toward the door, taking in the stage living room one last time. The rented sofa, the flowers, the borrowed art. It all looked like a set, waiting for a show to start. In the corner, the family portraits leaned against the wall, face turned inward. At the door, I glanced back once. She was already on her phone again, snapping more pictures, laughing softly to herself. The papers lay spread on the table, her wine glass casting aired reflection over my signature. I stepped outside into the cool night air and walked to my car. The neighborhood was quiet except for the faint sound of music from inside. I unlocked the door, slid behind the wheel, and started the engine. Driving away, I opened my phone and stopped the recording. 42 minutes of audio, her promises, her threats, her admissions, all neatly captured. I saved the file to the cloud and emailed a copy to Marcus. The road back to the hotel was empty. Streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the pavement. I kept my eyes on the road, my mind on the next step. My training had drilled it into me. Gather, verify, act. Tonight had been about gathering. When I reached the hotel, I parked, grabbed my bag, and went straight upstairs. The room smelled of stale coffee and printer ink. I spread the new papers across the desk and photographed each page. The letterhead, the signature blocks, the blank notary stamp, all of it went into a new folder marked dinner signing. I played back the audio on my phone, listening carefully. Her tone, her phrasing, the way she said mine when referring to the house, all perfect for the affidavit. I wrote timestamps in the margin of my notebook so Marcus could pull quotes easily. Another alert popped up on my phone. Samantha had posted Astery, a boomerang video of her clinking glasses with friends, captioned, "Victory tastes sweet." I saved it immediately. I opened my email and saw a message from Marcus. Got your files. Perfect. See you at 9 a.m., I typed back. Done. Closing the laptop, I leaned back in the chair. The city lights outside the window reflected off the glass. Small points of steady light. I wasn't tired, but I felt steady, like a line had been drawn and I was finally standing on solid ground. I poured a glass of water from the tap, took a sip, and set it down next to the stack of evidence. The papers lay flat, no longer symbols of loss, but pieces of a case. Each signature was a step forward, not back. As I organized the folders one more time, the hum of the air conditioner faded into the background. Everything was labeled, saved, backed up. The dinner had looked like surrender. In reality, it was just another controlled move in a process I understood better than she did. I shut off the desk lamp and sat in the dim light for a moment. The city outside still awake. My hands rested on the folder, steady and sure, ready for whatever came next inside the boundaries I had set. I set my alarm before dawn and headed straight for the small office Marcus had borrowed downtown. The room was bare except for a folding table, 2 laptops, and a printer. He was already there in a dark suit, sipping coffee like it was his fuel source. Without a word, I handed him the thumb drive. Hep lugged it in, headphones on, scrolling through the files I'd captured from the dinner. Perfect, he said, tapping a lawyer panic. Do you know what you just let her do? Timestamp. She's practically narrating her own motives. I moved to the window and opened the blinds. Below, commuters hustled into the subway, oblivious to the quiet war happening a few stories above. My phone buzzed with another alert. Samantha had posted again. Marcus tilted his screen toward me. She's live streaming now. I leaned over. The feed showed her in our parents' dining room, now transformed into a victory stage. The signed papers sat spread out like trophies. She'd even placed a framed photo of herself and our parents at the head of the table as if rewriting history. "Morning, everyone," she said to her followers, her tone sugary. "Big news. After years of being tied down, I'm finally free to manage the family estate the way it should have been from the start." She panned the camera around the room, showing the champagne bottles, the hired photographer, even the catering trays still stacked on the counter. In the corner, a man I didn't recognize was setting up a tripod. Marcus shook his head. "She's broadcasting chain of custody violations in real time." That on screen, Samantha laughed. "I told her it was inevitable. She signed last night every page. Now we can finally move forward with my plans for this mansion." She held up the deed like a prize and winked at the camera. "Sometimes you have to take control. Family can be so difficult." The comment section scrolled faster than I could read. People congratulating her, others asking nosy questions about me. One follower wrote, "Wait, isn't your sister military? That seems risky." Samantha replied instantly, "She's too busy playing soldier to care about real life." Marcus muted the sound and scribbled a note. "She's basically handing you proof of intent to defraud." I sat down, pulled my laptop closer, and opened a new evidence log. Timestamp link screenshot. Each entry lined up like bullets in a magazine. Another notification popped up. A local real estate blog had picked up the stream. "Heiress takes control off family mansion after legal battle." The headline read, "They'd lifted her Instagram photos without context." Marcus chuckled under his breath. "She thinks she's the star of a reality show." I clicked over to a private Facebook group for military legal professionals. A colleague had already posted a clip of Samantha's stream with the caption, "Client from Hell." Comments poured in about spoliation, fraudulent conveyance, and self-incrimination. While Marcus drafted an affidavit, I dialed the bank. "Yes, this is Captain Elena Brooks," I said using my full title. "I need to confirm a hold on any transfers from the Brooks Family Trust." The representative verified my credentials and confirmed the account was frozen pending review. Across the table, Marcus scanned more of the stream. "She's now talking about short-term rentals. She's literally describing a commercial plan using trust property." I took the phone from my ear. "Did she give dates?" "She says, 'First bookings are opening in 6 weeks. I typed furiously, marking the quote. My military training had taught me to capture details under pressure license plates, call signs, GPS coordinates. No, it was social media links, screen captures, and metadata. Another alert flashed. Samantha had posted a poll asking her followers whether she should renovate the master suite first or the kitchen. She wrote, "Now that it's officially mine, I can finally make real decisions." Marcus looked at me. "How did you grow up in the same house as this woman?" I almost smiled. "Different teachers." He returned to typing, his face lit by the glow of 2 monitors. I scrolled through the comments again. Buried between emojis and congratulations was a message from a neighbor. "She's throwing a big party tonight. Bus is arriving." I saved it without thinking. We spent the next hour pulling every piece of content from her accounts. Live comments, likes, shares, deleted clips from the night before. Marcus had a paralegal in another city mirroring her accounts in case she tried to scrub them later. By late morning, my evidence log was longer than my old deployment checklists. Samantha had managed to create a public archive of her own greed. I wasn't angry anymore, just focused. Marcus printed the newest screenshots and laid them out across the table. "Look at this sequence," he said. "Dinner signatures, her live stream brag, the poll about renovations. It's a narrative of control, not caretaking that matters legally." I circled a phrase she'd used on camera. "Now I can finally profit from it." Marcus grinned. "That's gold." My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number, a video attachment. I tapped it open. It was shaky footage from across the street showing delivery vans pulling up to the mansion. Men in black shirts unloading boxes of party supplies, rental equipment, and cases of alcohol. In the background, Samantha waved at them from the porch. "Who sent it?" Marcus asked. "No idea," I said, saving it anyway. He leaned back in his chair. "You've got enough to build a wall of evidence." I didn't answer. I was watching the stream again. Samantha had moved into the living room, walking past our parents' old piano. She ran a hand over it like a trophy. "This will be perfect for the photo backdrop tonight," she said, unaware of how the visible collapse, cars repossessed and accounts frozen word landed on my screen. I clicked record again on my phone, even though the paralegal already had it. Old habit, always have redundancy. Marcus stacked the papers neatly. "Next step, formal notice. We'll serve her with a preservation demand and start the eviction motion. She's creating our exhibits as we speak." I closed my laptop and stood. "I'm going to the storage unit. Need to check on what's left." He nodded without looking up. "Be careful and keep your phone on." The elevator ride down was quiet, the kind of quiet I used to get before a briefing. My mind ran through the checklist. Documents secured, trust locked, accounts frozen, evidence mirrored. The only thing left was execution. Outside, the city was warming up. People lined up for food trucks. Taxis honked. A street musician played guitar on the corner. I walked past them toward my car, phone buzzing with one more alert. Samantha had started a new stream titled Countdown to Freedom Party. I opened it as I reached the curb. She was showing off the backyard now. Tents and string lights being set up. Caterers in black shirts moving quickly. "By tonight," she said into the camera. "This place will finally feel like mine." The chat exploded with clapping emojis and heart icons. Someone asked if I would be attending. She smirked. "No, she's out of the picture." Lee. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kept walking. Each step felt measured, not rushed. This wasn't about reacting anymore. It was about documenting. She was making the record for me, one live stream at a time, and I was just making sure it stayed permanent. At the car, I paused and looked back at the skyline. The sun was high now, bright enough to reflect off the glass towers. I unlocked the door, slid behind the wheel, and started thenging. My hand steady on the steering wheel as another alert buzzed. Another clip downloaded. Another entry added to a growing file that no one could erase. I pulled into the storage facility parking lot, cut the engine, and sat still for a moment. The rows of beige metal doors stretched out like a grid, each one padlocked, each one holding a piece of someone's life. I grabbed my phone and opened the app that controlled my unit. The door rolled up with a low groan. Inside, the smell of cardboard and cedar hit me. My father's books were stacked neatly along the back wall, the same way I'd left them. My grandmother's china was still wrapped in acid-free paper. I did a quick visual check, noting every box, snapping photos for inventory. Nothing appeared disturbed. I took the box labeled legal docs and slid it into the trunk. This would go straight to Marcus. Everything else stayed where it was, sealed, logged, and dated. I closed the door, re-engaged the lock, and drove out without looking back. 20 minutes later, I was in Marcus's office again, spreading the contents of the box across the conference table. He'd called in a favor from a JAG officer he knew, Captain Lewis, a tall man with a clipped accent and a folder full of statutes. He shook my hand firmly. "Captain Brooks, thank you for your service," Marcus briefed me. "You're in good shape legally." Marcus gestured to the papers. "We're going to lay out the timeline, the trust, the separate accounts, her communications, and now the live stream." I sat down and began sorting. Trust documents on the left, bank statements in the middle, screenshots and social posts on the right. Marcus typed notes while Lewis reviewed the trust instrument line by line. "This was established before your marriage?" he asked. "Yes, 2 years before," I said. He nodded. "Good. And you never used trust funds for joint expenses?" "Never. Even better." Marcus turned his laptop to me. "I'm drafting the preservation notice now. It orders her to retain all documents, emails, social posts, texts, and prevents her from deleting or destroying anything. We'll file the eviction and a fraud claim simultaneously." Lewis flipped to a page and tapped it. "Here's the kicker. By posting about commercial use of the property, she's showing intent to convert trust assets for personal gain. That makes this more than just a civil dispute." I highlighted a quote from her stream. "Now I can finally profit from it." Marcus smiled without humor. "That line alone is worth 10 exhibits. We worked like that for 2 hours." Marcus typing Lewis cross-checking statutes. Mellabling and scanning every piece of evidence. Each folder filled up in the shared drive. Financial, social media, witness statements, recordings. The case took shape like a blueprint. At one point, Marcus looked up. "You sure you're okay? Most people would be falling apart." "I've seen worse," I said simply. "In my job, if you lose focus, people get hurt." "This is just paper." He nodded and kept typing. Around noon, Emma arrived carrying another folder. She looked nervous but determined. "I pulled more records from the office," she said. "Samantha called last week asking about access to the company portal. Security flagged it. Here's the log." I thanked her and flipped through. Every attempt documented, timestamped, blocked. Emma hesitated. She also tried to get the passwords for the cloud backups. Said she was helping with taxes. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's attempted eviction day at the $1 million mansion unauthorized access." "Add it to the file." Emma handed me another envelope. "And this is from Mrs. Chin next door." More footage from her doorbell cam, and inside were 3 USB drives. I plugged one in. The screen filled with clear video of Samantha unloading boxes into the house with a man I recognized from the live stream. Date stamps, times, license plates all captured. Lewis gave a low whistle. "You could teach evidence handling to half the attorneys in this city." Marcus leaned back. "We've got everything we need to move. Once we file, she'll have to respond under oath." I stacked the documents neatly. "When?" "Today, Marcus said we'll send the preservation notice first, then the eviction motion. The sheriff can serve her tomorrow morning." I checked my phone. Samantha had just posted a story from a salon captioned, "Getting ready for tonight's freedom party." I saved it automatically. Lewis closed the folder. "Captain Brooks, my advice, keep documenting, but stay clear of the property until service is complete. Let the process work." I met his eyes. "I know how to follow orders." Then Emma excused herself, promising to send more logs if anything came in. Marcus printed the final draft of the notice. "Sign here," he said, sliding the page to me. I signed with the same deliberate strokes I'd used at the dinner table. He scanned it, attached it to an email, and hit send. "Done," he said. "She's officially on notice." I exhaled slowly. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the printer. Marcus started preparing the eviction motion. Lewis verifying citations. E began organizing witness statements. Jennifer Martinez had already agreed to provide a sworn declaration about Samantha's party and statements on the porch. Mrs. Chin would do the same with her video footage. By mid-afternoon, the table was covered in neat stacks of paper and USB drives. Marcus had his jacket off, sleeves rolled, tie loosened. Lewis had a yellow legal pad filled with notes. My laptop screen displayed a spreadsheet of every piece of evidence cross-referenced to the timeline. Marcus glanced at the screen. "This is going to read like a manual on how not to steal from your sister." I allowed myself a small smile. She always liked an audience. Lewis stood and stretched. "I've seen big cases fall apart because of sloppy prep. This isn't tone of them." "You're ready." Marcus saved the eviction motion to a thumb drive and handed it to me. "Backup copy? I'll file electronically tonight. Sheriff's office has a slot at 7 a.m. tomorrow for service." End of doc. I put the drive in my bag next to my phone. Another alert buzzed Samantha posting a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking with the caption, "Countdown to my big reveal. Saved." Marcus shut his laptop. "We're done here for now. Get some rest." I gathered my things but paused at the door. The conference room smelled faintly of printer ink and coffee. The evidence lay arranged in perfect order, each page a counterweight to years of manipulation. Lewis offered his hand. "Good luck, Captain. Call if you need anything from Jag." I shook it firmly. "Thank you." Outside, the afternoon sun glared off the windshield as I unlocked my car. I slid into the driver's seat, setting my bag carefully on the passenger side. The city noise muffled as I closed the door. I took a deep breath and started the engine. The dashboard clock ticked over to 3:17 p.m. My phone buzzed with yet another alert from Samantha's feed. Without looking at it, I shifted into drive and pulled into traffic. Steady hands on the wheel, the sound of the engine low, and even as the plan we'd built moved into motion behind me. I parked a block away from Marcus's office and walked the rest of the way, my bag over one shoulder. The street smelled like roasted coffee and exhaust. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with another alert. Samantha's freedom party was in full swing. She'd posted a clip of herself giving a house tour to a group of friends, bragging about her new plans. I saved it without even glancing at the screen. Upstairs, Marcus was on the phone with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. He motioned for me to sit, then tapped the speaker button. On the other end, a man's voice was rising fast, papers rustling. "Mr. Feldman, I need clarification on some documentation that's just come to my attention." Marcus kept his tone neutral. "Of course. Which documentation?" "The Brooks Family Trust," the man said, breathless. My client was under the impression that the property was marital asset. Marcus looked at me and mouthed, "Garrett." He adjusted the volume. "Mr. Garrett, your client signed 7 different pages acknowledging the property was owned by the trust before any of this began." There was a pause, and more frantic rustling. But my client may have been confused about the implications of those signatures, and Marcus's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Confusion. Your client demanded sole and exclusive rights to property held in a trust he never owned, then posted on social media about turning it into a rental business. That's documentary fraud." I could hear Garrett cover the phone and speak rapidly to someone else. "Reclaim dinner. The best revenge is protecting what's yours in his office." When he came back, his voice was thin. "I need to review this with my client." Marcus leaned back. "We're prepared to give your client 72 hours to vacate, provided nothing is damaged or removed. After that, we proceed with formal eviction and criminal charges." Another muffled conversation, then Garrett's voice, now almost a shout. "Get Samantha Doyle on the phone immediately." A click, and then my sister's voice came through, slurred but still arrogant. "Tom, what's happening?" "The sheriff car is parked outside." "My cards aren't working. I can even make coffee in my own house." It's not your house," Garrett said flatly. "It never was." "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "She signed the papers. She gave me the house." Garrett lost whatever composure he had left. "Do you have any idea what you just let her do? You signed documents claiming ownership of property held in a premarital trust. You committed fraud, Samantha. Documentary fraud. She didn't give you anything. You gave her evidence to bury you with R." For a moment, there was only breathing on the line. Hers rapid and shallow, his ragged. Marcus muted our end and met my eyes. This is the part where the script runs out. We listened as Garrett outlined the catastrophic legal position she'd created. "The property was never marital asset. Your social media posts show intent to profit. The separation agreement is worthless because you can't transfer ownership of something you never owned. And by claiming exclusive rights, you've admitted you understood the ownership structure while attempting to steal it." Samantha's voice came back higher now. "But you said possession was 9/10 of the law. You said if I established residency." "I said that before I knew about the trust," Garrett cut in. "Before I knew you'd been posting about turning it into a rental property. Before I knew you'd signed acknowledgments of the trust. You need to vacate immediately before she files criminal charges." Marcus unmuted. "Mr. Garrett, the sheriff's office is already briefed. Deputy Martinez will serve the notice at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Your client has 72 hours to remove personal belongings. Anything purchased with trust funds stays." Garrett's voice cracked. "Well, comply." In the background, I could hear Samantha shouting about squatters' rights and family equity to no one in particular. Marcus ended the call calmly, closed his laptop, and exhaled. That was about as clean as it gets. I stayed quiet, listening to the faint sound of traffic outside. The building across the street glowed in the late afternoon Sunday. Marcus poured 2 coffees from a Carfee and handed me one. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I took a sip. It was bitter but steadying. She's going to spin this as long as she can. She can spin all she wants. Marcus said her lawyer just went from offense to triage. My phone buzzed again. Jennifer Martinez, my neighbor. A photo of the driveway. A tow truck hooking up Samantha's leased SUV. She'd captioned it. "This is wild." I saved it automatically. Marcus glanced at the photo. Financial dominoes. Another alert. The country club had suspended her membership pending payment of overdue fees. Another. Her gym access card declined. Each one a small cut to an image she'd spent years constructing. I stood and walked to the window. Below, people were leaving work, carrying laptops and coffee cups, unaware of the implosion happening a few miles away. What now? I asked. Now we let the sheriff do his job, Marcus said. She'll get formal notice in the morning. You don't need to be there. I nodded, still looking out at the street. A delivery truck stopped at the curb. 2 men unloaded boxes, laughing. Normal life kept moving while mine felt like a case file. Marcus tapped his pen against the desk. You did everything right. You documented. You stayed calm. You stayed legal. That's why this is working. It turned back to him. It's still surreal. He gave a small smile. It usually is when someone's mask comes off. My phone buzzed yet again. Samantha had posted a story of herself pacing the mansion, hair messy now, shouting at someone off camera. She'd captioned it. Legal harassment won't stop me. I saved it. Marcus looked at the screen. She's still generating evidence. I sat back down, opened my laptop, and added the new screenshots to the timeline. Each entry lined up neatly. Demand, signature, live stream, poll, party, financial collapse, lawyer, panic. It was no longer just astery. It was a record. The office door opened and Lewis stepped in carrying a manila envelope. Sheriff's Department confirmed service window. They're ready. Marcus took the envelope and nodded. Good. We're set. Lewis gave me a quick nod. Captain Brooks. Captain, I replied. He left as quietly as he came. Marcus closed the envelope and slid it into his briefcase. Go home, he said. Rest. This part's handled. I zipped my bag but didn't move right away. The room felt like a command post. After a mission, brief maps folded, radio silent, everyone waiting for the next move without saying it. I took another sip of coffee, letting the bitterness clear my head. Finally, I stood. Thanks, Marcus. He waved it off. You did the heavy lifting. I just pushed paper. Outside, the evening air was cooler. I walked to my car slowly, phone buzzing in my hand. Another notification, another clip, another entry to add to the file. I unlocked the door, placed the bag on the passenger seat, and started the engine. The sky had shifted to orange and gray. Traffic lights blinked in steady cycles. I merged into the flow, steady hands on the wheel, feeling the weight of the evidence in the seat beside me like a solid object. The road stretched ahead, unremarkable. The city moving at its usual pace, while a house full of borrowed luxuries and loud promises began to implode on itself miles away. The next morning started with the sharp ring of my work phone. Marcus's voice was steady but quick. Everything's in motion. The sheriff served the papers at 7 sharp. Thought you'd want to know. I was already dressed and lacing my boots. Habit from years of morning PT. How did she take it? I asked. Picture a balloon meeting a nail, he said, then paused. And it's all on video thanks to your neighbor. I hung up and drove toward a coffee shop across from the courthouse. Inside, I sat at a back table with my laptop open, the screen filling with messages and notifications. Jennifer Martinez had sent 3 new videos from her kitchen window. In the first, the sheriff's deputy approached the door, documents in hand. In the second, Samantha opened it, still in a robe, her hair messy, looking confused. In the third, she stood in the driveway as a tow truck hooked up her leased SUV. Her voice carried even through the glass. This is my property. You can't take my car. The tow operator calmly handed her a notice of repossession and kept working. She stomped her foot, shouting about lawyers and rights. But the SUV rolled away just the same. I saved each file to my evidence folder, noting the timestamps. Across the shop, 2 law clerks whispered over their laptops, glancing at the same live stream I was watching. Samantha had gone live again, phone shaking in her hand as she narrated her meltdown to thousands of viewers. "They're stealing my car," she cried into the camera. "This is harassment." The comments scrolled faster than I could read. Some sympathized, but many asked questions she couldn't answer. Why does the trust still have your name on it? Didn't you sign acknowledgments? Isn't your sister military? This looks bad. I sipped my coffee, kept my face neutral, and captured every frame. Marcus texted me a screenshot of a news blog headline. Freedom Party canceled as legal drama explodes. They'd embedded her live stream right below the headline. A second alert came from the bank. The joint account showed 3 declined transactions. Gas station, liquor store, online shopping. Each one logged automatically. I called Marcus. She's trying to spend what's left. It's locked down, he said. Every attempt is more evidence. Jennifer sent another photo. Samantha in the driveway on her phone, gesturing wildly at a delivery driver who just refused to drop off rented furniture. The caption read, "Trucks turning around. I saved it too." By mid-am morning, Samantha's social feeds had gone from celebratory to frantic. She posted a story of herself holding a stack of papers, screaming about bogus charges and harassment. In the background, empty champagne bottles from the party were still lined up on the counter. I opened my spreadsheet and added a new column for post-collapse content. Each link went in with time, date, platform. Years of military investigations had taught me. You don't know which detail will matter until you're in court, Marcus called again. Her attorney tried to file an emergency injunction. The judge denied it in 30 seconds. Cited your trust documentation and her own public posts. Fast, I said. Not as fast as her losing followers, he replied. Check her numbers. I clicked over. Her follower count had dropped by thousands since breakfast. Comments were brutal. Someone had posted side-by-side screenshots of her bragging about profiting from the mansion next to her, crying about harassment. In the middle of capturing that, a call came from Captain Lewis at JAG. Captain Brooks, he said, just to confirm, your personal safety isn't at risk. I'm fine, I answered. Good. From a legal standpoint, you've done everything right. Don't engage directly. Let the process finish. You'll be solid. Understood, I said. Back at the coffee shop, a man in a suit approached my table. Captain Brooks. Yes. He handed me a sealed envelope from the bank. Then he left. Inside was a confirmation that all trust assets were secured. No unauthorized transfers allowed. Another piece of the puzzle locked down. I pulled up Samantha's stream again. She was pacing the living room, shouting at someone off camera. They think they can take what's mine, but I have proof. She waved a manila folder at the camera, but didn't open it. The comments were merciless now. That's not how trusts work. Call a real lawyer. You posted all your crimes. I watched quietly, adding screenshots. My coffee went cold, but I didn't notice. At noon, Marcus texted BMW confirmed repossession. Country club membership suspended. Wine storage defaulted. Gym access revoked. Each message like Asmal nail in a balloon. I typed back. Lodged. Outside. Traffic hummed past. People walked dogs. Kids ate ice cream. Office workers scrolled phones. The normal city beat went on while a carefully built illusion crumbled in a suburban mansion. Jennifer sent one last clip. Samantha dragging a suitcase down the driveway, shouting into her phone. This isn't over, she yelled, but her voice cracked at the end. I closed the laptop and sat back, exhaling. The evidence was no longer just a stack of papers. It was visible in real time, a public collapse she couldn't edit. Every declined card, every tow truck, every turned-away delivery driver was a chapter she'd written herself. I packed up, dropped my cup in the trash, and walked out into the Sunday. The air smelled of exhaust and fresh bread from the bakery next door. My phone buzzed again. Another alert, another clip, another entry to add later. At the curb, I paused. The city moved steadily around me. People crossing streets, buses hissing at stops. I unlocked my car, slid behind the wheel, and placed the laptop bag carefully on the seat next to me. The dashboard clock ticked forward as I started the engine. The road ahead was clear, the noise of the city fading as I drove. Steady hands on the wheel. Each mile another piece of distance from the chaos in the mansion, and another layer of documentation locked tight in my bag. The morning air was cool and sharp when I pulled into a side street near the mansion. The neighborhood was quiet except for the low rumble of a diesel engine somewhere ahead. I stepped out of my car and walked toward Mrs. Chin's porch, where she was already sitting with her tablet open. It's happening now, she said, tilting the screen toward me. On the feed from her doorbell camera, a sheriff's cruiser rolled slowly into my driveway. Deputy Martinez stepped out in a crisp uniform, a clipboard tucked under his arm. Behind him, a U-Haul truck idled with its hazard lights blinking. Two movers in navy shirts waited by the rear door. Samantha appeared in the doorway, sunglasses hiding her eyes, even though the sun hadn't fully cleared the rooftops. She was barefoot, hair pulled into a messy bun, still clutching her phone like a lifeline. "This is illegal!" she shouted before Martinez had even reached the steps. The deputy spoke calmly, holding out the paperwork. "Ma'am, you've been served. You have 72 hours to remove your personal belongings. Anything not purchased with your own funds stays." She snatched the papers but didn't read them. "This is my house. My sister abandoned it." Martinez's expression didn't change. "This property belongs to the Brooks Family Trust." "You've been notified." Mrs. Chin zoomed the camera feed and we both watched Samantha's composure slip. Her voice cracked as she gestured at the movers. "Don't touch anything. I'll sue all of you." End of quote. The movers waited silently. Martinez pointed to the U-Haul. "We're here to make sure you get your belongings out safely. Let's start with what's yours." Samantha spun on her heel and disappeared inside. Moments later, she returned, dragging a suitcase, the same one from Jennifer's earlier photo. She dropped it on the porch, glaring at the movers. "Be careful. Everything in there is expensive." They loaded it without a word. Next came boxes of clothes, stacks of self-help books, a treadmill, she insisted, was hers. One mover checked a list on his clipboard, showing her their seat for each item. Anything purchased with trust funds stayed behind. I watched as she tried to claim the Peloton bike. Martinez stepped closer, his voice firm, but even. "Ma'am, that item was purchased with the company card. It stays." "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "I used it more than anyone." Martinez didn't argue. He simply marked it on the list. The movers rolled it back inside. Neighbors began drifting out, pretending to check their mail or walk their dogs. Mr. Patterson slowed his usual beagle walk to a crawl. Across the street, a teenager filmed on his phone, whispering commentary to his friend. Samantha noticed and shouted, "Mind your own business." Her voice cracked again. She grabbed another box, this one full of framed motivational quotes, and shoved it at the movers. "Take it. Take all of it, Avertable." Inside the house, curtains were drawn back for the first time in months. Sunlight poured across the living room, revealing scuffed floors, half-assembled furniture, and empty champagne bottles from her party. The staged glamour had vanished overnight. The movers carried out more boxes, a gaming chair, exercise bands, a stack of vision boards covered in photos of luxury vacations. Martinez checked off each one, his tone steady. "Anything else, ma'am?" She ran back inside and reappeared with a large framed mirror. "This was mine before," she insisted. One mover flipped his clipboard to the receipt. "Purchased on trust card 2 years ago." She dropped it on the porch with a thud. "Fine, keep it." I kept my eyes on the feed, making notes in my phone. Timestamps, items removed, items disputed. Years of training had made this almost automatic. Document, verify, archive. At one point, she tried to carry out a box of wine bottles. Martinez stopped her. "Those are Listetta's trust assets." She laughed bitterly. "Trust assets?" "They're wine purchased as investment grade," he replied. "They stay." The movers rolled the box back inside. She stood on the porch, shaking, watching it disappear. Mrs. Chin glanced at me. "She's losing everything but the clothes on her back." I didn't answer. The feed showed Samantha pacing the driveway, phone pressed to her ear. She was clearly calling someone, gesturing wildly with her free hand. No one answered. By late morning, the U-Haul held a sad assortment of possessions. Clothes, cheap furniture she'd bought herself, a few fitness gadgets, the stack of online course certificates. It all looked small against the vast interior of the truck. Martinez handed her a copy of the inventory. "This confirms what you've removed today. You have until Friday at noon to collect any remaining personal items listed here." Now she stared at the paper but didn't read it. "Where am I supposed to go?" she muttered. "That's not my call," Martinez said evenly. She shoved the paper into her bag and stomped down the steps toward the truck. The movers secured the last box and closed the door. The truck's engine rumbled to life. Neighbors watched openly now. Mrs. Chin's grandson leaned on the porch rail, phone in hand. Mr. Patterson paused his beagle mid-walk. A woman from down the street whispered to her friend. The quiet suburban street had become an audience. Samantha climbed into the passenger seat of the U-Haul, slammed the door, and stared straight ahead. The driver shifted into gear and rolled slowly down the street, hazard lights blinking. On Mrs. Chin's feed, the camera followed the truck until it disappeared around the corner. The driveway stood empty except for the sheriff's cruiser and a few boxes marked trust property. Do not remove. End of hour. Martinez gathered his clipboard and looked around once more. Satisfied, he walked back to his car. A moment later, the cruiser pulled away, leaving the house silent. Mrs. Chin turned off the feed and looked at me. It's done, she said softly. I thanked her and stepped off the porch. The air smelled of cut grass and car exhaust. My phone buzzed with one more alert, a push notification from a local news site. Eviction complete at Brooks family mansion. End quote. I walked back to my car, placed my bag on the seat, and started the engine. The dashboard clock clicked over to 14 p.m. The street behind me looked ordinary again. Kids on bikes, a delivery truck 2 blocks away, a beagle sniffing at a hedge, hands steady on the wheel. I pulled into traffic. The house receded in the rearview mirror, its windows catching the midday sun. The quiet street returning to its normal rhythm as if nothing had happened at all. Late that afternoon, I parked in the driveway again, this time alone. The sheriff's cruiser was gone, the street was quiet, and the house looked bare but clean. Sunlight poured across the front steps, catching on the brass doorknob that hadn't turned for me in months. I took out the new set of keys Marcus had sent over and unlocked the door. The deadbolt clicked smoothly, a sound that felt like closing a long file. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. The rented furniture was gone, the champagne bottles cleared away, the art prints removed. What remained was the real house, our parents' house, echoing and sunlit, no longer staged for anyone's show. Family portraits still leaned against the wall where she'd left them. I picked up one of my father's photos and set it back on the mantel. I walked from room to room, opening blinds and windows. The breeze carried in the scent of freshly cut grass. The floors looked scuffed but strong. The kitchen counters gleamed. Without the clutter and borrowed glamour, it was simply a home again. In the dining room, the long table sat empty except for a stack of mail. Marcus had arranged for a locksmith to change every lock that morning. On the counter, a note from Deputy Martinez confirmed the eviction inventory was complete. Next to it lay a single envelope from the trust's bank stating all accounts secured and no outstanding claims. I set my bag down and took a slow breath. For the first time since this started, I didn't feel like an investigator or a soldier. I just felt like someone standing in her own house. In the kitchen, I opened the refrigerator. It was mostly empty, except for a few bottles of water and leftover catering trays the movers had ignored. I poured myself a glass and leaned against the counter, looking out the window at the backyard. The grass was uneven where the rental tents had been. Birds hopped on the fence, indifferent to everything that had unfolded. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Locks changed, title secure, congratulations. I typed back a simple, thank you, and set the phone face down. The silence in the house felt different now, neither tense nor lonely, just quiet. I went to the storage unit later that afternoon and brought back 2 boxes, one with my parents' dishes, one with my mother's silver tray. I carried them into the kitchen and unpacked them piece by piece, returning each item to its old place. The tray went back on the sideboard, this time holding nothing but a folded linen napkin. As evening approached, I began setting the table, not with rented plates or staged flowers, but with my parents' old china and a simple centerpiece of fresh bread and candles. It wasn't a party, just a dinner. I called a few close friends from my unit, people who had helped me quietly gather information, people who understood what discipline and patience looked like. They arrived without ceremony, bringing dishes and bottles of soda. We sat down at the table, the same table where my sister had tried to corner me weeks earlier. Laughter replaced tension. Conversation replaced staged monologues. We ate simple food, roast chicken, salad, bread served on plates that had been boxed up for years. At one point, Jennifer Martinez stopped by with her grandson, dropping off Asmal cake. "Welcome home," she said shy. I invited her to stay for a slice. She told a few stories about my parents I'd never heard. The room filled with low voices and the clink of forks on china. When the meal wound down, I stood and thanked everyone for helping me keep my footing. No speeches, no fanfare, just a nod to the people who had made sure the truth stood up under its own weight. Later, after the dishes were cleared, I sat alone at the table for a moment. Candlelight flickered against the walls. The house felt full but not crowded, alive but not staged. The family portraits on the mantel looked back at me, faces calm again. I took out a blank folder from my bag and slid a single sheet of paper inside. At the top, I wrote Scholarship Proposal, Brooks Family Trust. It was something I'd been sketching quietly for months, even before Samantha's schemes. An idea to fund education for children of service members in our county. The trust would stay intact, the house preserved, but part of the income could go to something beyond us. Filling in the details felt less like a strategy and more like putting the house back together. Not revenge, not a counterstrike, just direction. When I finished, I closed the folder and set it next to the silver tray. The candles burned low. Outside, the street had gone dark except for a few porch lights. The air through the open windows carried the scent of night-blooming flowers. I stood, walked to the front door, and checked the new lock one more time. Solid. Back in the dining room, I blew out the candles, leaving only the soft glow of the kitchen light. The house settled around me, its creaks familiar again. I poured another glass of water and leaned on the counter, listening to the quiet. Everything was where it should be. The trust intact, the house secured, the evidence filed, the keys back in my hand. My sister's drama had burned itself out, leaving behind exactly what had always been ours. I thought of the words Marcus had used. You stayed calm. You stayed legal. That had been the real revenge. Not shouting louder, not staging a counterparty, but protecting what was mine with patience and precision. In the stillness of the kitchen, I felt something shift from tension to resolve. Not triumph, but steadiness. The best revenge wasn't destroying family. It was safeguarding what had been entrusted to you and building something better from it. I turned off the lights, walked upstairs, and paused at the landing. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and candle wax. Downstairs, the dining table stood set but empty, a quiet reminder of how far we'd come. Upstairs, the bedrooms waited, stripped of the clutter, but ready for a new chapter, this time on my terms. With the keys secure in my pocket and the house breathing quietly around me, I stepped into the hallway, steady as ever, the echo of my footsteps folding into the calm of a home finally back under its own roof.